is what is it that I don't know that I need to know in order to move forward?
Mm,
And I knew from that, and I would journal about it and think about it. And there are so many things, but one of them was really about being able to communicate more effectively.
gotcha.
And I didn't really say what I mean and mean what I say. I said it meanly, right? I use that sarcasm tone because that's all I knew.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stephenson, the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our mission is to continue to inspire you to live your best audacious life ever. It's always a pleasure to be here sharing insights and inspirations with you. And I want to take this moment to express my appreciation to all our listeners for dedicating time out of their very valuable schedule to join us. Your commitment to personal growth and audacity is what fuels our passion to bring enriching conversations, and we'll continue to do so as long as we possibly can. Now, think of expressing yourself authentically like a flower blooming in the spring. Just as flowers need sunlight, water, and the right environment to thrive, we too require a supportive space to reveal our true selves. When we hold back that authentic voice, it's like a flower that remains closed, never reaching its full potential. But when we cultivate the courage to express ourselves, we blossom, sharing our colors and beauty with the world around us. If you think about courage, it's the bridge we must cross to overcome fear, and often it only takes 90 seconds of boldness to make that leap. Similarly, setting boundaries is an essential form of self-love that nurtures healthy relationships. By clearly defining what we are comfortable with, we will create an environment where both we and those around us can thrive in a very, very big way. We often engage in negative inner dialogues that can self-sabotage our self-esteem and confidence. And it's so crucial to recognize that these harmful narratives can actively and we have to actively change them to foster more positive self-image. Remember, the way we talk to ourselves sets the stage for how we engage with the world. Now, in today's episode, we discuss the importance of viewing experiences as valuable lessons rather than failures. Every setback offers a chance to learn and grow, and the perspective it gives us is vital for personal development. I had the pleasure of speaking with Shay Sparks. She's an energetic catalyst for change and a certified fearless living coach. She's got a background in neuro-linguistic programming and hypnosis, and Shay helps individuals find and share their voices, igniting passion in both their lives and businesses. Her journey from overcoming personal struggles to empowering others makes her insights incredibly relevant to today's episodes, and her experiences in fearless communication and resonate deeply with our theme of authenticity. Her journey of self-discovery and growth is a testament to the power of expressing oneself and the courage it takes to set boundaries. So now that we've got the table set, let's turn to our conversation with Shay Sparks. Enjoy. Hey, Shay, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you for taking the time, and thanks for doing this.
Well, oddly, it's such a joy to meet another podcaster with all the things that we do, but especially when one like yourself who is just full of the celebration of audacious living. So I commend you for what you're doing and thankful to
Thank
be
you.
here.
Thank you. No, it really, as I said before I pressed record, it's a very important part of myself, and to be able to extend that. Like for me, for example, the idea, Shay, of you and I sitting here having a conversation, other people get to overhear, and
Yes.
there could be that one thing that they take from that chat that they can use in their own lives and make a profound transformative change for themselves. That's just so exciting. It's exhilarating, actually. And so the fact that that potential exists, and the fact that we're able to do this through dialogue is just really exciting. So again, thank you for helping me sort of complete my mission, so to speak, because it really is something that I really believe in. So it's, yeah, let's just do it, man. Right.
Yeah, I love it.
um So here on this podcast, one of the things we encourage is individuals to live their best audacious life, and the interesting thing about that can look very 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 different from one person to the next. I truly believe that we're all on our own individual path, and on that pathway, we could have our share of things to celebrate as well as challenges and obstacles. And particularly around those challenges and obstacles, I think it's so important that we attack them head on, and we don't shy back from them, or let them veer us off course or change direction or turn around and go home because something is too hard. I think the idea of attacking these things, recognizing that on the other side is kind of where the rewards are. I want to say where the greatness lies on the other side of those challenges. And so it's to overcome the fear, demonstrating that courage, that boldness, that audacity to go off and do better is really what we're excited about, what we encourage. And I certainly, as yourself, as a fearless educator, if you will, it's something that you very much encourage us saying. We're so much alike and in sync here. I feel like I'm talking to a mirror, but I think that's what we're gonna experience. But maybe as a starting point, Shay, I can get you to introduce yourself to our audience and talk a little bit about your journey and what's got you to the point that you're at now.
Absolutely. So, who I am is an energetic catalyst for change and a fearless communicator. And what I do is I am a certified fearless living coach and master practitioner of NLP, which is neuro linguistics programming and hypnosis.
Okay.
And what I do is really help people find, use, and share their voice, whether that's inner voice to their out loud voice, so that they are fired up about their life and business.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And curious, what got you into this or in this direction? I know everyone's got a story, right? And everyone's
Right.
got a reason why they do what they do. What's yours?
Well, a million years ago, I was in an abusive relationship,
Mhm.
and I had the opportunity to get out and get freedom. And I started counseling immediately within that first week of leaving him, and realized a lot of things, but had lots of growth healing journey is what I call it. One of the things I learned during this is that I grew up in a house that was very sarcastic.
Okay.
And so there wasn't a whole lot of mean what you say what you mean. There was a whole lot of poking fun, a whole lot of anger. There was never any love or nurturing in my home. And so I wouldn't call my parents abusive, but there was definitely love was not shown. So I didn't really know what love looked like. So
Right.
here I am on this journey, and one of my questions that I asked myself, that I hope your audience is taking notes, and they'll write this down and ask themselves if they ever find themselves in this, is what is it that I don't know that I need to know in order to move forward?
Mm.
And I knew from that, and I would journal about it and think about it. And there are so many things, but one of them was really about being able to communicate more effectively.
Gotcha.
And I didn't really say what I mean and mean what I say. I said it meanly, right? I use that sarcasm tone because that's all I knew. And
That's what
so
you're taught.
that's what I was taught. I
Right.
was learned to like kind of wrap a compliment in I call it a backhand, a compliment, and an insult. And not only that, I would learned how to manipulate my words on being able to ask someone to do something instead of actually ask them. It was more talking them into it, persuasion, right, if you will.
Mm.
And so here I am in my healing journey, and I'm figuring this out about myself. And I went, well, what is it that I'm really saying to myself? And I learned that my inner voice was extremely negative.
Right.
And it was as if the words that I was saying to myself was, you would never say to another human. I mean, it was
Mm.
so bad. And I just started to capture my thoughts. And so in the journaling process, I would write everything down. And I was like, man, that's some hurtful stuff. And a lot of times we go on autopilot, and we're just
Mm.
going through life, and we don't even realize that we have this inner voice.
Right.
But when I figured this out, what is it that I don't know that I need to know, was that my inner voice was hurting me. And what my abusive partner was actually doing was reiterating things I was saying to myself, number
Right.
one. And those were installed when I was a child from my parents, unfortunately. So it
Mm-hmm.
was kind of like this stair step of life of that's how my voice was. So when I figured that out, I was like, you know what, I'm going to change the way I talk to myself.
Mm-hmm.
I then started to change the way I talk to my family. So
Right.
for an example, my dad, after this, my dad and I were having a conversation and it sounded like he asked me to do something. And I made very sure at this point that I wasn't going to offer help. I was
Right.
only going to wait for the question to
Okay.
be asked. And so in this particular conversation, he said something to me, and I said, hold on, Dad, are you asking me to do something? Or are you trying to manipulate me into doing it?
Mm.
And he says, what? Like, I don't even know what that
Right.
means.
Yeah. No concept, right?
And
Yeah.
and I said, I get that you don't know what that means. I didn't understand what being vulnerable meant.
Okay.
And I learned that being vulnerable is saying what you mean what you say, not say it meanly, and asking for help.
Mm.
So are you asking me to do something for you? And you're going to be okay if I say no?
Right.
Or are you trying to persuade me into doing something for you? And then you're going to withhold your love or be upset or mad at me because I say no?
Mm.
And he was
Mm.
like, wow, what? I do that? He had no idea. And I
Right.
said, oh,
Right.
yeah, you do that. And mom does that. And that's what, my older brothers do that. Like, this is what we learned. You taught us
Mm.
well. And when I started to break things down, not just
Yeah.
for him, but I ended up doing that for every one of my family members,
Sure. Sure.
it changed the dynamic of our family. But it was like, wow, I had no idea. So how often we are on that autopilot and we're just
Yes.
saying things that we don't even
Yes.
realize we're saying.
Yeah. No, no, so true. Well, thank you for sharing that because that really it resonates, and I'm sure many listeners will say, "Oh my gosh, it's happening too." And oftentimes, to your point, the autopilot's happening, right? It's doing its
Yeah,
thing, and we're not thinking twice about it. And really, do we need to think about every single thing we do? I think autopilot can be a good thing. However,
sure.
if what's being established is on the foundation of something that's hurtful or not helping you or damaging, it has negative impact, then we got to revisit and look at that. And it sounds like certainly you're establishing some boundaries with your family, or in this case, with your father, right? Is that fair to say?
Well, yeah, absolutely. That was one of the books that I read that changed my life was boundaries.
Mm,
And I didn't even know what boundaries were. Like I had no clue. And so being able to establish that and talk about it again, didn't know that what I was experiencing was hurtful or even negative. It was just is, right? It's just what it is. And
mm,
so once I started to break it down and then talk to my family, just like I'm talking with you, and not accuse of them or make them bad or wrong or shame them into anything, it was really about just having a conversation, open conversation about it. It shifted everything and the family dynamic shifted, and my parents were divorced, but they became more amicable during this time period as well.
mm. Wow. Wow. I think the idea of making significant changes, and this is essentially what you're doing, not only for yourself but your entire family. We do what we do, we know what we know, and we don't think twice about it. And if all of a sudden everything you've ever done in life has been challenged and you're like and the mirror is held up and going, well, actually here's what's really happening. I can see, it can go one of two ways, right? It can be really, really good because you want to make that change, or it can go the other way. Was there a concern for you about like it not going as planned, or did you think about that at all?
Sure, but that's fear, right? Fear shows up of what if this goes wrong. And this is what I learned through the journey. So the reason I call myself a fearless communicator is because it's really about expressing what you're going through.
Okay.
So in this particular time, I was expressing my experience. And if they did not agree with my experience, which, I had one brother that says, argued with me that he was not doing that. Um, Did that, did I worry about that? Honestly, I didn't, because it wasn't about how he was going to receive it. It was more about making sure that I was expressing my authentic voice. And just
Mm.
by expressing my authentic voice, I felt heard, understood, and belonging, and felt that I was taking a stance with my own boundaries. And boundaries is a form of love, a form of
Hmm.
self love. And
Hmm.
that's really why it's so important that we're able to express ourselves. It's not
Gotcha.
about how the other person receives it. Now, mind you, if you're being hurtful or it's confusing, then absolutely clean it up. That's not what I'm
Right.
saying. Clean it
Right.
up and keep having that conversation. But if you come from a place of curiosity, right, and intention
Yeah.
of good and love and
Yes.
compassion and kindness, rather than the, like I said, I didn't come from a place of blaming or shaming or accusing anyone. It was more of a, hey, this is what I've been experiencing when you say that. Did you know that that's what happens to me when you say that?
Right. Right.
And most of the people are like, wow, I had no idea. I mean, when people have said that to me, like, do you know when you use that, when you say that, you have this tone and it makes me feel less than. I'm like, what? Oh my gosh, that was never my intention. I'm so,
Right.
so sorry.
Right. Right.
Because I feel as a whole, right, humans are good. And if
Absolutely.
not, I try to find the good in all humans, right?
Sure.
And I can almost bet you that most people aren't communicating. They don't even think about it. They don't even think about how they're communicating, how they're showing up. But they might seem something different where a relationship shifts, like something's off. The energy exchange changed somehow, and they're not sure how. And the best way to do it is being able to clean it up and express yourself and say, "Hey, what's going on here? What happened? What did I say that I didn't mean to say, or that wasn't my intention behind those words?"
Mm, mm, mm. I think it's a great question to ask ourselves, and um, sometimes the answer will surprise us, right? Because it's not the two aren't congruent with one another. But I think it's still a great question to ask. You talked about being able to express ourselves authentically, which I'm all for. And I think is a fabulous thing, and I think that's something that people should think about trying to do as much as possible, if not all the time. However, before you can do that, you've got to find yourself authentically and know who you are.
Yes.
Talk about that process of finding yourself, if you don't mind.
Hmm. Well, so I love that you asked this question because I want to make sure that people understand expressing yourself authentically isn't about yelling and throwing a fit every time that you're upset, right?
Yeah.
It's really about digging deep to finding why the thing that triggered you.
Mm,
Like, what does that lead back to? Because it's not in the here and now. It's not right now. This is something that's happened years ago. Most of the time, it's happened in childhood.
hmm.
And with my own journey, I learned that everything stems from my childhood, and
Right.
our childhood experiences shape our adult decisions. Okay.
Yep.
As a coach, and all the things that my training that I've been through, it literally not just comes from your childhood, it can come from past generations, past lives, if you believe in all that stuff, but it comes from a place that typically isn't what's right now. So you're angry about something that happened right now. A lot of times isn't about right now. A lot of times it's something that it reminds you of something that may have happened when you were a child or 5 years ago or something else. And it stems from what need of mine was not being met.
Right.
So as a child, I was telling you about my parents, they weren't nurturing or loving. Well, if my need as a child was to receive nurture and love, then I'm going to say and do whatever I can to get nurture and love, even though I didn't get it, right? Because we're just not taught, right? So if I acted out, well, that gave me some sort of attention. So I was a troublemaker, if you will, and a teenage alcoholic. So
Mm,
I acted out all the time. And guess what? That gave me lots of attention. Now, was it positive attention? No, but
no.
it was attention. And at
Right.
least I got, oh, this equals love, right? And so if you think about, or if you know anyone who's ever been an abusive relationship, a lot of times that's what they've mixed up is
That's
that
right. That's right. Yep.
attention equals love. It doesn't matter if
That's
it's
right.
positive, it's love.
Hmm.
or control, right? Control equals love. And so you have to understand where all of the decisions that you're trying to express yourself now comes from. And so if you can draw a line back to saying, hey, this is why I'm upset because it reminds me of a time when blank, blank, and blank, then I'm all for saying yes and express yourself.
Right.
But if you're
Right.
coming from a place of, people, one of the things my dad used to do is fly off the handle,
Okay.
right? Like that kind of anger, right? He would just
Yes.
fly off the handle out of nowhere. And that's great if that's who you are and that's who you want to be in the world. But that's not who I want to choose to be around.
Hmm.
And so, and I had to learn that when he did fly off the handle, I, as his daughter, once I went through my process, my journey, my healing journey, I learned to ask, what's really going on? So I see you're having an emotional reaction. So what's really happening?
Right.
And
Right.
I'm
Right.
sure my dad was like, "Who are
Yeah.
you?
What are you
What did you do with my
psychoanalyzing me for?
daughter?"
Right.
Right, right. Because he was like hoping I would engage and be upset too, and
Right.
get all riled up like he was. And I was like, nope. What's really going on? And I remember a conversation that we had about he was he had intentionally asked me about a gift that he wanted to buy my stepmom.
Hmm.
And then as he has it continued to go, the conversation about what he wanted to buy her for Christmas, he got mad. He got madder and madder and madder. And I was like, hold on, where is this anger actually coming from? Where is the thought of buying her this particular gift? Where's that expectation coming from? And
Hmm.
once we broke it down, he basically, had the experience of her saying, she doesn't love me.
Mm.
And I said, wow, I'm really sorry that she said that. Do you believe that this gift is going to change that outcome? And he said, well, it should. I said, great. And what if it doesn't?
Right.
And that's when we have to look at what our conversations, what our intentions, what our actions even, are aligned with is are we doing it for a particular outcome?
Hmm.
So like you said,
Right. Yep.
was I worried about the outcome of me expressing myself freely? No. My goal was to make sure that I'm expressed freely and how that was taken is their outcome, not mine.
Love it. I do. I do. Because you're really not. It's not being concerned with that outcome. It's here's what I'm here. So here's what I'm. My mission is this. This is what I'm here to do, and being very very clear, very focused. I'm envisioning, Tom Cruise and his Mission Impossible. Do you accept this in mission? Yes, I do. And you plow ahead, and that's what it is. And nothing else really matters outside of achieving that objective. And so I'm certainly hearing that. Uh, we briefly touched on fear. Um, I feel though that it's impossible to have a conversation with fear without talking about courage, because as the two
Mm.
work hand in hand, and courage is the upside and the positive part too that we all can demonstrate, and it's so relevant to the conversation. The courage so relevant to this podcast because there are times when you absolutely need to muster up that courage to be who you are authentically supposed to be, and in a world that sometimes suppresses that, or maybe there's childhood traumas that say you can't be that way, or there's other things happening that has an influence. The courage to be who you are is a pretty big deal.
Absolutely. And I'm going to say, and I cannot tell you who said it first. It wasn't me. But I believe the saying goes, it takes 90 seconds of courage in order for you to do the thing. That's it.
Okay.
90 seconds. So oftentimes when we have a risk or we're trying to achieve a goal, or we're stepping out of our comfort zone, right? And
Mm,
sometimes having a conversation that's uncomfortable is stepping out of our comfort zone, right?
you're right. You're right.
And so if you can muster up the audacity to have that 90 seconds of courage, once you're in it, then those 90 seconds have flown by and you're already there. The
Yeah.
fear the fear dissipates. The fear
Right.
isn't in the present. The fear is in
Right.
the anticipation
Correct.
of the future, of the event happening, and the
Yes.
worry of what
Yes.
happened after. So it's not in the
Yes.
actual present.
That's right. And if we can, if, I think even that explanation of fear, I think there's a lot of power in that for
Mm,
individuals, because you'll know that, well, what I'm concerned about is something that hasn't happened yet.
right.
I haven't taken the steps for that yet because I'm afraid. But if I take that steps, the fear is gone. And now I'm dealing with, I'm here. Now what? And sometimes I get in conversations with people about failure, and I'm going, okay, so if I'm going to try something new, I'm going to step out of my comfort zone, and embark on a new journey. There's really two things I'm faced with, right? I try that new thing, and it's successful. Great, game over. We're good, right? Because you got what you're after. You tried, you were
Mhm.
successful. Well, okay. I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. I think most people
Right.
will take that and run. So you look at the other option. I'm not successful. Okay.
Mm.
Right. So are you really unsuccessful if you've gone through an experience and you now know what doesn't work? You have a better perspective. You might even discover how to make it work the next time you muster up the courage and get past the fear to do it. So is failure really a bad thing? It's a question I ask.
Mm. I absolutely not. In fact, I don't even use the word failure anymore. I use the word learning experience.
I love it.
And so back to my healing journey, one of the things I learned about myself is it was very hard for me to be vulnerable. And I couldn't even say the word. So I thought, okay, so how can I be like how do I learn how to be vulnerable? And the answer is to be vulnerable. Put yourself in safe. And now, mind you, I came from abusive relationships, so make sure it's safe
Yes.
spaces where you can be vulnerable. So I would go to networking events and introduce myself, but I would also say things like, I'm new here.
Okay.
I'm not sure what I'm doing here, but I'm new here.
Mm,
Saying those things in a sentence together was like, huh, unfathomable. Like, no way could I ever do that. I always felt like I had to have it all, I had to have it all together, right? Like the external appearance to everyone is I got to have it all together.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how I was raised. That's how most of us are raised, right?
Right.
So to say I don't know what I'm doing here was like I couldn't even say it. I was like whispering it.
It
Which
sounds
is
like
funny because
yeah.
my dad couldn't say the word manipulation. I couldn't say the word vulnerable. So I totally get it. And what I learned was that I would ask myself these questions. So here we are, a learning experience is okay, what did I learn about myself?
Yes.
Who did I connect with? What did I learn for next time? And
Yeah.
how am I going to shift? And how did I grow? And when you look at it again from a perspective of curiosity,
Mm,
and I actually call it curious exploration.
okay.
If you come from a place of curious exploration and you're just exploring what's out there, let's see
Yeah.
what vulnerability looks like.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
what does
Yeah.
that look like? And rather than having an expectation
Correct. Correct.
attached to how it's going to or how it should play out, right? Then you come from a place of freedom rather than the place of fear.
That's right. Yes. Let's try it on and see if it fits. And if it fits,
Yeah,
great. And if it doesn't, we know it doesn't fit. We don't need to try that again, right? Like
right.
and it's funny because as I say it, I know it sounds really, really simple. Just do that and try it out. But there is a process and there's a journey for some people to step out of their comfort zone. So I don't want to minimize it, but at the same time, like you still gotta do it. Like just I think that's why that Nike slogan's just do it is so powerful and impactful and real because you just have to. Like, what are you waiting for? Just do it.
Well, and I love that you said that because a lot of times people think out of my comfort zone is like the most terrifying thing I could ever do. Like public speaking for some people is
Yes.
like a die, right? They're going to die. Oh my God, I would die if I did that. I would die if I had to take an airplane somewhere. The thought of that is just like terrifying. And so think about it this way, that your comfort zone isn't that giant leap. The comfort zone is in stages. So first you
Yes.
have just a tiny step out. You have a stretch. You're stretching yourself
Yeah.
like you have on yoga pants or those elastic shorts. You're stretching yourself just a little bit.
Yep.
And then you get to a risk zone where it's a little bit of a threat. You know you can do it, you just haven't done it yet. And then you have the die zone that you have no idea if you can do it. And so you have no idea, the thought of it just terrifies you. So if you look at it that way and break it down into those tiny steps out of your comfort zone, then you can back it up and reverse engineer it just to the tiny step. So
Mm,
what's the stretch? So the stretch not might be public speaking or traveling on an airplane. It might be, well, let's just speak in front of two people.
that's right. That's right.
Let's just talk to other people who have flown and what their experiences are.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, it's really about taking the next best step
That's right. That's
rather
right.
than the leap of faith.
That's right. And it doesn't look as big, right? It doesn't look as
Right.
big. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'll share quick as you talk about public speaking. I can remember once upon a time, I was deathly afraid of speaking publicly, and not because, um, uh, um, I thought I couldn't, not because I couldn't do it. I had this internal fear that I would speak in front of people and they wouldn't understand me. And
Mm.
so I just like, well, I don't want them. I just won't say anything altogether. And I say public speaking, I'm not necessarily talking standing up on a stage. I mean, in a meeting, in a group of people, I just felt like if I say something and they don't understand, then what? Right? Like that was a fear for me. And so my natural response is just don't say nothing. And what started to happen is, so we'd be in, let's say, a meeting or something, and the people that knew I knew about the topic, they're like, "Well, Audley, what do you think?" And I get drawn in that way. Then when I got going, I'm like, and I think that maybe that was my validation that someone knew I knew something about it, so it
Yeah.
must make sense because they know and they brought me the conversation. So that's kind of how I think I started to try and deal with it. But I remember and I knew I wasn't satisfied with it. So I knew that what I was doing wasn't right and I wanted to do something about it. And I don't know where I got the idea from or how it developed, but I decided that every time I got in a group of people, I would say, I'd make my point. And because the thing that really got me is like the no nods, just the stone cold expressions where you're like, nod, say something. And so when I didn't get that, that freaked me out. And so what I started doing it as a habit is I'd make my point and I'd turn and say, "Hey, does that make sense?" Right? To get that validation that I had, and then once I saw that, then I revved me up and I was gone. Right?
Right.
But I needed that to get going to deal with that fear. Funny thing now is like I still do it to this day, and it's not because I need to, it's just a habit. Like I'll kind of say, "Hey, does that make sense?" And what that in turn actually had done, it made me a better communicator because I am now connecting with people. I'm actually looking people in the eye and saying, "Hey, does that make sense?" And I'm now able to have dialogues in a group setting and connect. And I think that helps my message resonate even stronger. When I look at the places where it started from, it absolutely was a fear. And the funny thing about it is when you talk to what fear is, like I don't ever think I remember a point where someone said, "Hey, you make no sense. Shut your mouth." Like that didn't happen, right?
Right.
But I was convinced I can't do it because, and so um, those fears are real. Fears are real for people. They really are.
Well, and a lot of times I love that I love your story. First of all, thank you for sharing
Thank
that.
you.
And I want to pinpoint about something you said there. So fear, I think somebody says it's false evidence appearing real. Is
That's
that,
right.
yeah. So let's talk about that. So your phrase that you told yourself was they're not going to understand me, right? So if you again are paying attention to that inner voice, right? So hopefully your listeners, now that they've heard us talk enough, are now going to start paying attention to that. They're going to say, okay, so what is my inner voice saying?
Yeah.
And I know that that is not true. No matter what it's saying, it is not true.
Right.
Then the next question is, how do I get to move forward? So what happened is, and I don't even know if you even saw what this is what happened, but what happened is that your brain said, I'm only going to speak when I'm invited.
Mm.
And then you had all of these opportunities where you got invited to speak. And then you were validated by that. Yes, then a head nod. Yes, just
Yes,
like
yes, yeah,
we're doing right now, right?
yeah, yeah.
And then that is what gave you the courage. So I love that your fear took over to the point where it was like, yes, but if I'm invited, then I can be okay.
Yes.
So for
It's
your
almost like you're
listeners out
conditioning,
there,
like you're bartering with yourself, right? That
right,
bargaining,
right. You're
right?
bartering with your fear. So if your listeners are taking notes, maybe they can write this down. So look for the invitation
Mm,
when the fear's showing up. What is it? What invitation do you need so that you're stepping out of that comfort zone?
mm. I love it. I absolutely do want to talk about that internal conversation and the one that we all have. Every single one of us have that internal conversation, and the words we say, the things that we think about ourselves, how we view ourselves, how important that internal conversation is. Because the way I see it, that really sets the stage for everything you do
Yeah,
after that. Like after that thought that you think about, whether you think you're the greatest thing in the world or not, like all of the actions are triggered by that particular thought. So I wonder if you could just sort of touch on just the significance of that, the internal dialogue that we have with ourselves.
absolutely. I'm so glad that you asked this question. It's one of my favorite things to talk on. So it all starts with a thought, right? And everything starts with that inner thought. So if your inner thought is coming from a place of fear, now what does fear look like? It looks like something different for everybody. It could be, am I going to look weak? Am I going to look stupid? Am I going to look incompetent? Am I going to look like I don't know what I'm doing? Am I going to be good enough? Or enough, whatever enough, smart enough, pretty enough, rich enough, right?
Mm-hmm,
Am
mm-hmm.
I going to be blank enough? And then what happens is we feel something from that thought. And that feeling is what drives our actions. Most of the time, it drives an action that hurts us. It's I can't think of the phrase it's called, but it literally we're hurting ourselves,
Okay.
whatever that looks like.
Okay.
And then we repeat it. Well, see, that didn't work. That didn't let go of our fear. So then we repeat this cycle. And the best way to get out of that, the antidote to getting out of that, is paying attention to your thoughts, holding your thoughts captive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's showing up for me right now? Okay, got it. So I'm worried that I'm going to look stupid, incompetent, insignificant, um, that I'm not good enough, that they're going to think I'm a fake. Uh, so instead of that, how can I tap in to being kind to myself? What can I invite them myself to?
Mm-hmm. There's that
Can I
invitation
invite
again.
myself to a place of calmness,
Yes.
of self-expression? Can I set an intention to speak from the heart rather from the mind? Instead of saying, well, I think, say I feel, and really tap into what you're feeling. Can I invite myself to speak from a place of love and compassion for myself? What would that look like? How would I show up then? And then I can give my whatever. I can take that step out of the comfort zone. I can shift my mindset, because then once your mindset and your thoughts are now changing, because now you're focused on what's feeling, then your
Right.
body then starts to go in a different direction and you get better results. So if you want better results, you have to reverse engineer it all the way back to those inner thoughts. So what is it that you really want to be thinking? So instead of thinking the negative, what something else you could be thinking about?
Gotcha. Gotcha. It's I have a child on the autism spectrum, and we talk oftentimes about replacement behaviors, right? And so
Mhm.
you have this behavior that you don't want. There's some that can be extinguished, but some have to be replaced, and that's essentially what you're describing is we're exchanging this for this, and make sure the thing that's being exchanged for is just positive, right?
Well, yeah, and positive or empowering,
Gotcha. I love that word better.
right? So
Yeah.
it's more of a is it just the opposite and it's just a positive thing, Or is it something that's going to lead you and I won't even say lead or propel you into a better move, into a better action, rather than just keeping you fight, flight, or freezing. And
Gotcha.
like, for instance, in your public speaking, you're like, well, I'm just going to freeze and not say anything.
Right.
And then once you were invited, it like that shifted everything for you.
Gotcha. Gotcha. The
So
importance of the invitation. That's great.
yeah, and I didn't even realize it until you said it, and I was like, gosh, how often that's really what we need to do is invite the freedom in, invite the courage in, and
Yeah.
what does that look like?
Yeah. 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 I don't know. Definitely a key takeaway. Um, Shay, this is awesome. I mean, great time chatting with you, and certainly as a fellow podcaster, I certainly want to give you your opportunity to talk about the Shay Sparks Show podcast. But I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about your title as the Chief Excitement Officer of Sparks Fire. Tell me all about that and what that means.
Well, as you know, in the corporate world, a lot of times CEO is chief executive officer. And in my former career life of 20 something years, I was a hairstylist. So I had a lot of clients that from corporate America that were CEOs, CFOs.
Yeah.
And their personality was one where it was almost they were one way at work and then they were a different way outside of work, right?
Right. Right.
And I thought, you know what? I used to be when I was in my abusive relationship, I didn't realize it that I was just living, I was surviving. I was not thriving. I was just surviving and I was just waiting to die.
Mm.
And I thought once I got out of it, I want to thrive, right? And so I want to be excited about life. And so what if I show up every day excited about what I'm doing, where I'm going, who I'm talking to, and what I can make happen today? And so I shifted mine from I am not a stuffy chief executive officer. I'm a chief excitement officer because for me, it's about how can we bring excitement? How can you be fired up about your life and business? So it just kind of is the whole gamut there.
Hey, I get it, man. I get it, absolutely. And why not? Why not live in excitement? It's a great place to be. And just the energy. In fact, I truly believe that the quality of life, vastly improves when you can have something that you can get excited about or look forward to on a daily basis or regular basis. It just is a game changer. And so I think excitement is a great place to be. Let's give it a chance to plug your podcast here, or podcast, I should say. You've got a lot going on.
Yes. So I am the host of the Shay Sparks Show, where we talk with military and business leaders on what it means to invest in people.
Hmm.
And I'm also a co-host of a couple of other shows, and two of them are on hiatus right now, but the next one is coming out. It's called Underwired, and it's to uplift and support women everywhere. And there's a group of us. There's four of us, three or four, depending on the week. And we talk about one subject, and then we can just kind of base it into little segments about that. So that's a lot of fun. And yeah, you can find me at the shaysparkshow.com. And you can go to YouTube at Shay Sparks and find it there as well.
Well, Shay, I got to tell you, you definitely brought the excitement today. You brought the energy. You brought the insights, and I appreciate you for doing that. I appreciate you for sharing your journey, and commend you on the work that you're doing and the way you're impacting others in just a positive fashion. It's tremendous. So I wanted to commend you on that, and I also wanted to thank you for being a guest today here on the Audacious Living Podcast. It's been a delightful time, and I appreciate you for doing this. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you for all the work that you're doing and that you're bringing joy to the world, along with the courage to be audacious. So thank you for that as well.
Awesome. Take care. Back we are here on the podcast. And, one of the main points for my conversation with Shay that struck a chord with me was her insights about the importance of setting boundaries as an act of self-love. Establishing boundaries doesn't mean shutting others out. Rather, it creates a healthy space for mutual respect and understanding. I loved how Shay emphasizes that expressing our true selves and setting boundaries can transform our relationships and our lives. It's truly a powerful reminder that we have the ability to shape our interactions with others. I encourage you to connect with Shay directly to dive deeper into her work and insights. You can find her at shaysparksshow.com. That's her website, and that's her social media platforms. And the link that is going to be down low for you to click on that. So I certainly encourage you to do so. For more details, including her special offerings, again, that link will take you there. In fact, Shay is currently offering a free consultation for anyone interested in exploring fearless living coaching. So that's a great deal. Don't miss this opportunity to gain insights tailored to your journey. I want to thank you for joining us on this journey of another enlightening edition of the episode of the Audacious Living Podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please follow, subscribe, or share. And this is how, of course, we continue to help this platform grow and inspire others. Remember, your audacious life awaits you. Embrace it fully. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stephenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.